Good morning, everybody from the Netherlands. Well, within the MyData community, we all share a huge goal. We want to place the individuals in the central role in taking control over their own personal digital data. MyData said it as follows. We need to do so by move from data protection to data empowerment. We as people shouldn't be treated as merely subjects who need to be protected, but rather as autonomous human beings with the will, the agency, the opportunities, the skills, and the tools to make use of our personal data as we like it. The enabler of this empowerment, this control, is the MyData operator. Within the MyData community, there's a lot of effort and attention already for techniques to make human-centric data operators possible. And of course, that is extremely important. And also to the themes business, legal, society, are MyData groups already working very hard together. But we believe that to make us as individuals with all sorts and backgrounds really able to exercise our rights, we are not so interested in techniques. What we need is a clear and understandable usability of the personal data management tool, the MyData operator. The usability such as defined in UX design. The UX is of great importance, we believe, for the user adoption and the interoperability of MyData operators. Because only an easy to use MyData operator will be adopted in society and will be used in business. So we are looking forward to taking you into the world of UX design. We invite you in this workshop to co-design a UX blueprint. We will do so by bringing some experts and expertise to you and to pick up your insights. But first, let me give you a small introduction of us. There's Peter Eikelboom, Innovation Manager at the Volksbank, a Dutch bank. And Peter is eager to give customers the control over their data back again. And he's therefore working closely in this field and also with Stoes. There's Mike Alders, and he's bringing extensive experience in UX and UI to the digital identity team of the city of Amsterdam and to Dutch operator Irma. Marlies Rikke is a researcher and advisor specializing in personal data management and co-innovation projects. She's working with Innovalor, and probably you all know her for her contribution in all sorts of ways to the MyData community. Lisbeth Heijink analyzes the impact that technology might have on companies and their customers as a researcher and advisor at Innovalor. Lisbeth investigated, together with Marlies, the usability of the blauwe knop. Koen Evers is a graphic designer in heart and soul with his own agency. He works with Slush even before Slush was named Slush. He did all the design work from the early days on for the UX design of Slush. And my name is Marie-José Hoefmans. I'm one of the initiators of Slush. And Slush is among the first 16 awarded MyData operators with Slush U. And only you decide who may know what about you. Marlies, can you explain us something more about the goal of this workshop?
Yes, thank you for a great introduction, Marie-José. So, as you already said, design is not always top of mind. Because when we have conversations about interoperability, we see that it's often about the technical side. We talk about technical standards and interfaces that make us work together. We think about how do we have a conversation about the semantic interoperability, what is the definitions that we use, and legal interoperability. And these are standards at a European level. However, we don't see design in this picture at all. Which is too bad, because when we think about MyData operators, we want to inspire a certain level of trust. As Marie-José already said, you want to make sure that when you have an operator, that you can expect a certain level of quality when you're interacting with this solution. And that is not only guaranteed by thinking of the technical side or semantics or legal sides, because we as a human are interacting with the UX interface. So this is why design is so important. And that's also why today, Lisbeth, if you can go to the next slide, is why we want to focus on interoperability of design in the ecosystem. Now, if you have read or seen the MyData operator work, you will notice this picture. You will have seen it before probably. That there are many operators in the landscape, and there's a giant diversity in solutions in how we approach MyData design. And in order to get a better feel of how to design these solutions in a more a certain higher level of quality where we can inspire trust, because often when we see these new upcoming solutions like Irma, like Sluice, like Digime, there's many more. For people, these are often new solutions in the ecosystem, and there isn't an existing level of trust yet, and we want to increase this level of trust. So yeah, you can go on, Lisbeth, that's fine. So in order to get a more standardized feel for MyData operators, we want to focus on design, and we want to do this today with you, like Marie-José already said. We want to involve you in this process because we can share some expertise, and yes, we have some experience by now by working on our own solutions and by researching solutions. However, the MyData community is very big, and you all have amazing ideas, which we also want to incorporate. So what we want to do is to start to work on a UX design blueprint for MyData operators. So we can collect all our experiences into a collective place or platform. We're still thinking about how to save this after the session, but we want to create a space where everyone can go who is designing operators and wants to be inspired on how to start, how to do this, because it isn't easy to design a consent flow. How do we get people to actually read? It's, people don't like to read, but how can we make informed consent happen? That's not happening, like I said, through a technical standard. You have to make sure that people in your solution are reading well, and there are certain barriers or certain things that make it so that they understand what they're doing. So yeah, we want to collect your ideas in a design blueprint, which Peter will explain a bit more further on. And besides this, we will be sharing best practices. So Sluice, Irma, and the blue button, the blauwe knop. We all have some ideas, but we won't share them until after the work group session, because we don't want to already prime you into a certain direction. We would like you to be thinking from your own experiences and share your own ideas. So we'll do that after we are done with our workshop. So I think, Peter, you will explain to us what we will be focusing on in the user flow.
Yes, thank you, Marlies. For our brainstorm, we use this user flow of the MyData operator to brainstorm and to collect ideas. And for a MyData operator, you must see that is a kind of app, a data wallet on your phone where you can collect and share all kinds of data. We want to use this user flow because that gives you an idea how this app is working, and we can also use that to feed the discussions later on in groups, so we can divide this flow in parts. So let me explain this flow first. When you start using a MyData operator, of course, you have to download one and to register one. That's the first step, and on the top of this user flow. The second step, after you have downloaded and registered this app, of course, there is a secure login with your PIN code, your fingerprint, or maybe your Face ID, so that your data is securely protected. The next step will be, and then the first time you log in, there will be some kind of onboarding. And that's interesting because the interesting question there is, how do you onboard in this kind of apps? And do I have to, for instance, add my identity to this app to use this kind of apps, this kind of operators? So when you are onboarded on the app, and always the first time, always when you log in, you enter the first screen, and we call that the dashboard. And an interesting question there is, what's on the dashboard? What kind of overview do I want to have on the dashboard so I can use my app in a good way? And the main functions we see in the app are four. The first one is around managing your data, all your data in the app. What kind of overview do I have of all my data in the app? It's a kind of overview of your digital profile. You have to see that. The second one is around data sharing. Probably you need to scan some kind of QR code to make the connection, to get a data request, what information you have to collect and you have to share with that service. But you can also use that kind of functionality to share your ID, or maybe to authorize some stuff. So the scanning and QR could be used for multiple purposes. The third main function we see is around consent management, because we think it is important that you have an overview which data you are sharing with whom, for what purpose, and for what period. Maybe even in the future you can, and at that part you can even withdraw your consent, so you can act your right to be forgotten. That would also be nice, that not only sharing but also have a possibility to unshare things. But we see that as more as a future function for that part. And the last part is around account settings. That are the normal stuff around your PIN code, but that's also an interesting question if in the future you maybe have not one account, but maybe you have also access to the accounts of your children, maybe your parents, or maybe your partner. So it's an interesting question. Do I always have one data wallet in my possession, or when I'm a data steward, maybe I have even access to another data wallet? So next slides, please, Lisbeth.
Yes.
So around what things we want to brainstorm today? We numbered them 1 to 5. So the first thing we want to brainstorm around today is around the onboarding. Is how is this first time use, and how can I add my ID, my identification, my identity to this app? Interesting question, if you have to even. The second brainstorm session goes around this dashboard. What overview do I have? And when I log into my data wallet, what kind of functions are on that dashboard? The third brainstorm will be around my data management. What is a handy and clear overview of my data in the wallet? And a representation of my digital profile. The fourth brainstorm is around my data request. How can I collect and share data with a service, or maybe other purposes as checking your ID or authorizing stuff. And the fifth brainstorm is around consent management. So how do I have an overview which data I shared with whom, for what purpose, and what period? So keep this in mind. When later on we will ask you to pick one of these topics. Make a decision in which workshops you want to participate. Next slide.
Sorry, Peter. We will be. There will be people will not have are not able to choose for the workshop themselves. Whoa.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry. Okay. I thought you could use. Oh, we will.
Vladimir will decide.
Okay. We will explain later. Okay. Good to know. We use a Miro board for our brainstorms. On the board, you see a screenshot of the board. There are the 5 topics for the brainstorm, and when you open the board, you have to navigate to the topics you are appointed to. Every topic, every brainstorm has 3 parts. The first part is about the requirements. So take 5 minutes individually to review the requirements we see for that part, and add some sticky notes with your remarks if you think other requirements are also important, for instance, for onboarding. The second part of the workshop is around the workspace. We have 10 minutes for that. The first 5 minutes, you pick a screen and make a sketch for yourself. What do you think is a good solution for onboarding? So visualize your own idea here. And after 5 minutes, we do a small pitch of every solution to each other, so we have an idea what kind of solutions are on the board. In the last 15 minutes, we use to prepare our pitch as a group. So we pick the best ideas of the screens and put them in one screen at the bottom, and you can add some bullet points or some things for the pitch, so you can prepare your 1-minute pitch to the other groups. And of course, important there is appoint someone to do the pitch after that. For those who don't know Miro, next slide, please. A very short introduction. So later on, we will provide you with the URL of the mirror board. This is a screenshot of a mirror board. On the left side, you see the toolbox of a mirror. You see some small icons, and for instance, in the third icon, you can add some text. And when you click on that, on the fourth icon, you can add some sticky notes. And when you click on that, you see the basic things you can add in color. You can pick a color and then point a sticky note to the place. So keep that in mind, because that's an important one to add your comments to things. But you can also make a drawing. Or when you are more advanced, you can click on the bottom there of the toolbox on the three dots, and then an extra panel will appear, advanced panel, and there you can add some icons or some wireframes, or you can add some emojis, some extra stuff you want to add to the board or to the screen you are drawing. If you want to navigate a mirror board, it's on the right bottom side. There is that blue thing, the navigation, and that's a small representation of the complete board. So when you click on one of those small blue items, then you navigate to that part. And that are the 5 items of the brainstorm, so you can navigate to your item of the brainstorm quickly.
It's time to go, Peter, I think, to the meeting.
Yes, it's time to go to the meeting. So now I've introduced the flow. I've introduced the five brainstorms, and I introduced Myro. So now we are going to one of the 5 rooms. Every room has a facilitator, so he or she can explain more in detail what is happening there. And of course, you have to navigate yourself to the mirror board by clicking on this URL. It would be nice if we can add that to the chat so that via the chat also people can navigate to the Myro board. If you never use the Myro board, the first time in a few small steps, you have to create an account to use the Myro board. Okay, then now the magic is happening. We are going to switch to the 5 rooms.
Yeah, Vladimir will assist us. So thank you very much, Vladimir, for that. I think everybody has returned right now, and hopefully everybody had some fruitful discussions about their topic. So I would like to invite from every room one person to do the 1-minute presentation. So Marlies, can we start with your room? I don't know who was in your room, so who will be presenting?
Oh, well, I can do it. We didn't discuss it. We had Claudia and Christina, and yeah, so we talked about the consent flow, and well, we didn't get into drawing as much because we all had mouse pads and it was difficult. But we did have really good discussion. So we talked about what the requirements are mostly, and a couple of new ones we came along. One was the level of trust. So maybe sometimes you want to give modular consent, where you want to modular. Yeah. So you want to be very, very minimal in what you share. Maybe sometimes you do trust an organization, and you maybe want to give them, and it's in quotation marks, carte blanche, but maybe you do want to give them. You don't want to be asked every time. So maybe sometimes you do trust an organization so much, and maybe in the medical side of things, if we think about pharmaceutical or pharmacies and your general practitioner, that you want to give access under certain conditions, and maybe there's quite a big difference in the type of trust that you have, and maybe how that impacts the consent flow as well. We didn't get to actually designing this, but it was a very interesting idea. And also, to make things as easy as possible, we think there should be more pictures. Currently, we're still thinking in text, but how can we make it like if you have the role picture, maybe you can do something with that. I know I should already do it, so I'll stop.
Thank you, Marlies. New word, modular consent. Great. Yeah. Peter, about your room. You're muted, Peter.
Maybe someone can share the board, the Myro board, because then we also
Lisa, can you share it?
And I joined Koen in the room, so together we were in room in 1 around onboarding. So if you can focus on that one, zoom in on the proposal. Okay. Who can I invite to present our ideas?
I think Sami, right? Can.
So Samir, give it a call.
Oh, I can't find him in the room. Where can I?
Koen, can you then please?
Yeah, no, definitely. We had a good conversation with Sami and Team Christian. And interesting that they both went different directions. Of course, it was a pressure cooker. It went way too quick. We could talk on for hours. But the key points we summarized is that there is a thought that we might have to create different onboarding processes for different users. So start with the basics. What is the need of the user and what's the reason he is using the app? And if we know that reason or the goal they have with the app, we can then deliver a personalized and a unique onboarding process. Apart from that key feature, we were thinking about also make it simple, minimize friction. You can do that also by explain it more visually. Also, like Marlies was saying, videos, pictures, etc. And Peter, maybe you can do the last one about the ID.
Yes, an interesting discussion is, of course, when you know the app, so you have done the tutorial and you are comfortable with the app, what would be the first action we want to trigger? And we had a small discussion about adding your ID, for instance, by scanning your passport. And I think also that depends on the context. Sometimes that is overkill, and the other times that's a good first step to take. So that's again the personalized onboarding is I think a great idea, and we have to think about how we can design that.
Thank you.
Sorry guys, my Zoom crashed, so
welcome back.
No worries, Sami. I tried explaining it in your words.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Mike, can I invite you or somebody from your group?
Yes, thank you, Marie-José. Yeah, I was wondering, Marjan, can you explain our design stuff? Because we had some troubles in starting up and finding the way in using Miro, but finally we started the requirements phase and we had some additional requirements, and later on we came up to the design part, and Marjan,
yeah,
I would invite you to explain it.
Please, I don't know who is sharing the screen. Could you please zoom in
to the dashboard?
Lisbeth?
I think then the considerations, right?
Yeah, yeah. Actually, we thought that if I have a dashboard as a user, I want to know where is my data, who want access to my data, and a sharing history. What have I done earlier? And a place, a PDS to save the data that I want, and a notification when I need to do something.
Thanks. Great. That makes one group left. That's the group I was in. And Danuta, can you? That's the pink one. Danuta, can you present what we came up with?
Yeah, I can do that. So actually, when it comes to any request, we were talking about that we need to keep it simple, because we are sharing a lot of data here, but everybody would like to do that just with one click, probably. So the first step, we need, of course, to know the most important data, like who is requesting the data, what kind of data are needed, for which purpose, for which time frame. And one point was quite important, because the type of verification. So does the requester, is the requester requesting simply, I don't know, an approximate income of you, or is there an offering based on this request? So the question is the data you are asked for, do you need to provide a verified data, or simply entered data by you So, and if you would like to know more details, like, I don't know, technical metadata, if you really would like to know which kind of data will be provided in which format, probably machine readable format. So simply you can deep dive into that, but only in the second step. So it should be quite simple when it comes to the request.
Thanks to everybody. I heard the words easy and simple a lot of times. So that's one big goal that we need to address in the UX blueprint probably. So thank you very much for sharing your ideas and your thoughts. But we also promise to share our learnings as well. So Lisbeth, if you can start sharing the slides again, and Marlies, if I can then ask you to share the learnings that you and Lisbeth had on the blue button in the Netherlands.
We shall. Lisbeth, you will actually take the word first, I think, if you can share.
And I'm just going to find our slides again. So, share screen. So yeah, today I'm going to tell you something about the blue button and the learnings that we took from it. Marlies and I took the last year to research how people want to share data and can share data. So first I might introduce the blue button a little bit to you. I'm sorry, it's quite echoey here. I hope you can understand me. And the blue button is a recognizable and safe way for citizens to share their data, their personal data, which is with the government, with any party that they would like. And like I said, we did some user experience research. So we set up a nice mock-up which people could click through. And because we wanted people to give informed consent, Marlies and I decided that writing down everything very consciously was a good way to start. And that promptly had us bumping into some trouble because people didn't read. They just clicked through because they wanted to get to the part where they had given consent or something. So we were reconsidering and thinking about, like, so how can we make these people give actual informed consent instead of just going through the motions. And I think we found a few interesting things, which may not surprise you very much, like use simple language, short sentences. Also, bullet points work very well, we found out. And you can show information twice or sometimes 3 times. And most of the people don't even notice, but one of the times they will see the information. So here you can see on the different screens that they are 2 different screens, people with exactly the same information, but sometimes people didn't read this one, but they saw this one. And then some other things we found out is just don't have people get through. So I heard some people say, like, I want it to be very quick or I want it to be very easy. We preferred not to be that easy. So what we actually did was we made some buttons unclickable until people ticked a box. And what we figured out is that people would usually read the part which they had to tick the box for. So yeah, which data is shared with whom, for how long, and with which purpose, the most important, most relevant information to everyone. If you put it with a tick or with a box somewhere that people have to explicitly do something, they will usually see it, they will usually read it.
And so the last thing we also did was try to give the overview of consents that's been given. And I noticed that in our consent flow discussion was already a point. Like I want to have an overview of what is all standing out in terms of consents that I have given. In this case, you can see here on the left, you see, well, it's in Dutch, but you have a little overview box, and you have this for each organization that you're sharing data with. So this is at the source. So you're at the source that you have where you're giving out the permissions. And this source gives the overview of consents. And you see the company logo, you see what data it is about, gegevens, and you see the dates. And here the end date is until you revoke. And there's a giant button that says revoke your permission, so toestemming intrekken. And you can make a card like this for each company that you have a consent for. That's outstand. It's not uitstaand. Yeah. So this type of card can be very easily implemented in other places as well. This is not just for this company specific. Like this template could be used anywhere, I think, whether it be in an operator or at a source or at a data using service. Can we go to the next slide?
Almost last slide.
Almost exactly, that is the last slide. So yeah, Lisbeth and I have been thinking about these flows a lot, and we keep iterating. And as we know now, we want to use more pictures in next iterations, and we want to concise the information even more. So this is an in-between step, and we want to go even further. But we can also help others that are struggling with these questions and think about how can we do this in a better way. So feel free to contact us if you are interested in more, thinking about this more, or have your own case where you're thinking about flows and user design.
Good, thank you very much, Marlies. Lisbeth, are there maybe already some questions that people want to ask immediately to Marlies and Lisbeth?
Yeah, please.
Or maybe people want to save them for the chats. That's also a possibility, or in the Kiko chat, please share your thoughts if you have them. You want to save and come back to questions or anything that arises here in a later stage as well. So if everything is clear, then probably that could also be, of course, Lisbeth. Then we move on to Koen, which will share his insights on Sluis.
Yes, thank you, Marie-José. Yes, as Marie-José said, I'm going to share some of our favorite learnings of the Sluis app. Can you go to the next slide, please? So one of the learnings we had is that users are more likely to keep using an app when they've actively invested time in it. For Sluis, this is especially important because users that didn't install the app because of a data request are also there. So what's in it for them? And we thought about that, and our solution, one of our solutions is that at Sluis we invite users in the onboarding process to optionally fill their vault with data from selected providers, so they can already experience part of the app and feel the value. Next slide, please. Another learning we had was about trust. Trust is a really hard one. Trust is an outcome triggered by a number of different factors that we can design. It needs to be something that is thought out about across the entire customer journey. I just present now two highlights. One is that one of the things we did is that we make a promise to our users on a security, privacy, and ownership level. This is at the onboarding phase. Another cool example, I think it's a cool example, is that we're so committed in being open and trusted that we even rethought how we could make the terms page look like. So we restructured the terms page and made it also in plain Dutch, easy to understand, easy to scroll through. Next slide, please. For the data request, we learned that that users that experience one lengthy onboarding process become exhausted and are likely to forget vital information. So instead of having one onboarding, we cut it in pieces. When you start your first data request, it will activate a small part of the onboarding that explains how it works. By this means, we help putting the user in the right goal-focused mindset at the right time. Of course, you can say like, hey, I don't want to see this anymore, and then be done with it. Next slide, please. Perspective. I also said duh behind it because it's that clear, but I find it so important that I'm gonna say it again. Users, of course, want to know what are they sharing, with who, for what purpose, and for what period of time. This is so important. So we built the screen up that you can see an immediate overview of all these essential informations before actually starting sending the data or doing a transaction. Next slide. This is also a fun one. We actually learned that users love how easy it is to use the app and to complete a data request. Of course, this is awesome. But also, as Lisbeth said, how can we let users make a conscious transaction? Well, we looked at different apps, but we're also inspired by apps in the financial space. Inspired by these financial apps, we've created breaks at key moments. The biggest example, of course, is that you actually get a really large consent screen that you have to fill in your PIN code again before actually sending something. Another thing we also learned from the financial space is, hey, why not give the users a receipt after the data transaction, and which we can store under contracts. So you can always look back on what did you do on what time and what did you send with who, etc. Next slide. Make it visual, also something that we actually discussed in the brainstorm session in Miro. Users aren't always fully aware of what is happening. It's a new product, it's a new service. It's not always that easy to understand. So what we did is we used the progress screens, basically empty screens or thinking screens, and we used that as an opportunity to explain it visually. So in this example, we are actually visually showing your collected data being stored in your vault. And we do that with a small animation. Last screen, I think, yeah. So yeah, this is the small selections of one of the learnings we had. Of course, we had more. If you would like to see more of Sluice, I would invite you to test the app yourself. Unfortunately, it's only for Dutch. We're planning on making it English real soon. If you go to sluice.app/beta test, you can test it, and you can, of course, read more about Sluice at sluice.org. Thank you.
And thank you, Koen, for a clear explanation. Does somebody already have some questions that he or she wants to direct directly to Koen, since he's still over here? And if not, then we move on to Mike.
Yeah, feel free to also ask it on Slack or anything you like later on.
Thanks. Then we'll move on to Mike and share his learnings on Irma, another MyData operator.
Yeah, thank you, Marie-José. Yeah, thanks, everyone. I would like to share some learnings when designing a digital identity for the citizens of Amsterdam. Initially, I was making UX concept design, and soon I contacted Irma, and they liked the concept, so they asked me to implement it in their Irma app. But in general, I will explain some of the things of the user-centered approach that we followed. Now, one of the learnings was that we started to explain everything to the user while onboarding the Irma app, but we found out that people don't read the text, people don't understand it, and people don't believe it. So our solution was, next slide, please, that we came up with a more visual, oh, that was too quick, sorry. So one back, please. So we came up with a scrollable intro page with simple images and text that people explain what this Irma app is doing for them. Next slide, please. And in our research, we did research studies on how people use cards or other means to have access to buildings, to have access to their financials and so on. Next slide, please. And we asked people to bring their own wallet and to see, and we noticed that people make their wallet personal by adding photos and so on. Some people do have big wallets, some have very small wallets, like the one you see on the right. Next slide, please. And we came up with the idea of skeuomorphism. That means that we use common patterns in the real world to make a transformation to a digital world. In this case, for a digital identity manager, we thought, well, we can use physical cards, as you see below. So I designed different cards, used for personal cards, for your bank account, for your health, for your other registrations, and also make extension of the cards because the space is limited, so we can extend the card by user interaction. Now, and we think that once people are accustomed to the concept of cards, and when they are familiar in using the card concept in their wallet, we can think of a new concept of displaying all data. Now, these are some of the designs that I made in the concept phase. So these are partly wireframes and partly graphic designs as well. And next slide, please. I also made some designs how to give consent. So I put black bars on data that will not be revealed, but by doing user tests, we noticed that people didn't understand that completely. Some thought, well, why can't I see these data? And other people thought, well, you hide them for me, but they're still sent to the verifier. So that's why we skipped this idea. Next slide, please. Also made designs for an ID in the app. So these are IDs that are based on the ID card or the driving license. And we found out that when people see these designs, they think, well, this wallet is gives more value to me. It's personal. I will not share someone my access to this app. So that is also a learning. Next slide, please. Another learning to share is about data sharing. Initially, I used branding of cards, but people thought, well, these cards are cards from the city of Amsterdam, whilst the data are the data of the user themselves. So we skipped the black lines. Next, please. And we came up to a more neutral design. So no branding, because the data in some consent phases, you have to give consent using different cards of different issuers. So we skipped the branding, and we finally, next one, please. Next two, please. Finally, we came up with a sort of a card that you can use to disclose your data. And we added also an option to select one of many cards that you can disclose. So you have an arrow on the right, so you can switch another source, or you select another source or another value. Next, please. And as I said before, I was asked to implement the UX in the MVP of the Irma app, of an MVP of the UX in the new Irma app. So I show you some of the designs of the current app in English. So sorry not to translate the other screens as well. But in general, what the focus was that we have to focus on the current features. So we have to transfer all users to the new design. So we cannot skip the features of that app. Some UX proposals could not be implemented in the Irma architecture, so we have to redesign parts. But whilst making the new app, we continue to do the prototype, test, evaluate, and improve circles, so we could also benefit these findings in the creation of the new app. Next, please. And what I did is I used a story map to prioritize the features. And I think the last screen will be some QR codes you can scan. So if you like to experience the IRMA app, use one of the App Store or the Google Play Store icon, scan it yourself, and you can download it. It's in Dutch or in English, the app. And on the right, there's a QR code that leads you to a demo site of Amsterdam. And unfortunately, today it's not working working correctly, but you can still access it, and I hope it will be available later today. But you can try it yourself using your IRMA app credentials. So that's
Thank you. Thank you, Mike.
I managed it in 5 minutes. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, you did. You did.
Okay. Thanks.
Excellent. So maybe there are some questions here for Mike that's people want to address to him directly, since there is a chance. I got the questions if the slide deck is available for download, and it is. It already is, I believe, in the session room. You can see our slides, and I think they will be available, made available afterwards as well. So thank you all very much for your insights for the different backgrounds. I think we really learned some new things, and at the same time they are not that really new. I believe in the chat there was a small request coming up for making these type of apps available for visually impaired people, but we truly believe that it shouldn't be for visually impaired people only, but for basically this type of apps are meant to be able to be used by everybody, and that makes the challenge even bigger, of course, because if I remember and wrap up from what I understood from the things that came out of the breakout rooms and for the presentations that we've heard so far, is that that it's a long process that we need the people to get familiar with, and people don't like long processes. They get bored, they get exhausted, they skip, they don't read, they don't understand, etc. So the challenge is big. And at the same time, we hear from the breakout rooms and also from the learnings here that people want it to be simple, want it to be easy. They don't want too much information, but at the same time, we do have a lot of information to bring. So how do we come to give people, to make them aware, to make them conscious about the consent that they are to be given on sometimes really valuable information? And how do we make that process trustworthy? Well, as I said to all of you before, we do have a lot of learnings learned so far, but there's so much more to find out. So how do we come up with that UX blueprint together? That's the next step that we want to set from now on. So this is more or less an invitation to all of you to come together and to start working together on a familiar, a recognizable UX blueprint. So what we will do is bring the thoughts that we have together, but our intentions are bigger than for now. Does anybody of you have some ideas about how to come up with the UX blueprint and how to set next steps? How you can and want to join us in this journey? So you can contact me, or you can contact Marlies on all sort of communication channels. We are available, and we are available in the Slack channel for the MyData conference, or the MyData Slack channel in general. So So we want to meet you and keep in touch. That's what we basically are up to, and we're trying to set up means to set up a real platform to bring all the learnings together. So this, for us, it doesn't stop right now and right here. The question comes from will it be available for Dutch people only? No, of course not. It will be for everybody all over the world, since we truly believe that MyData operator apps are not binded to borders. So what we are working on is really a global mission. So the UX blueprint is meant to be for global use. And we want to have the insights from all over the world for that. That would be really interesting. And for now, that part of the insights, the apps that we gave are in Dutch for this period of time. But they are also available and usable, I believe, for people from all over the world. So, next steps. Learnings, takeaways. If you want to share them with us from this session, please share them in the Kiko chat room. We want to save the chat of the Zoom space as well. So everything that has been asked but hasn't been answered yet will be saved and will be answered in a later stage. But we hope to meet you soon again in the future to come up with next steps and setting up a real UX blueprint.
Maybe, Marie-José, I can take a moment as well to invite everyone who wants to think about interoperability in terms of business models as well, because Marie-José, myself, and Lisbeth will be doing another session later in the afternoon where we think about MyData operators again, but then from the more revenue model and business model side.
Very good, Marlies.
A little advertisement for ourselves.
Very good. So if there's no if there's nobody wanting to ask or add something, then we all wish you a very nice stay in the conference, and maybe we'll meet somewhere in another session room, in the lobby, or in the parking or the outside space. And thank you very much for joining and participating. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Everyone, thank you very much.
Bye.
Dank u wel allemaal.
Thank you.
Het was heel leuk.
Ja. Dankjewel. Thank you.
Zijn we nou eerder klaar dan we bedacht hadden?
Ja, dat denk ik wel.
Dat was echt knap.
We have 5 minutes yet.
Yeah. We timed
If you wish.
so well.
Yeah, I think we reserved some time for questions. So
Yeah, we did. Yeah.
yeah. So, but this is nice. What's
People
the
were
overall feeling?
flabbergasted.
Ja, want ik vond eigenlijk ook dat er niet zo heel veel questions ook in de chat ook waren.
Ja.
Ja.
Nee, dat is jammer. Ja, het was veel te kort, vond ik, voor de design
Ja,
show.
het was echt een pressure cooker van heb ik jou daar, de Miro-board. Maar
maybe in English.
Oh yeah, sorry.
It was a pressure cooker.
Yeah, the workshop was a bit of a pressure cooker also because also in our team one had to register, so he was in 5 minutes later. Yeah. So we managed, we skipped some things, so we did have some nice conclusions, to be honest, on the onboarding, but it was short, let's be honest.
We had the same. We ended up we had 2 people besides me and Lisbeth, but we did have a really nice conversation.
Yeah, no.
And there were actually like some new ideas, or at least ideas coming from them. So we mostly made it a brainstorm rather than designing, like actually drawing, because that was impossible on the laptop. And people were super happy. So.
Yeah, no, I think they liked it. And for me, the aha moment on onboarding was the thinking about having multiple types of personalized onboarding based on the needs of the user that is using the app. And that is, of course, really interesting. Yeah. So yeah, I'm happy to hear that.
We have a new word, maybe, Marlies. Not only modular consent, but modular onboarding as well.
Yeah,
we also thought of.
So if you want everything modular, then it's
no,
it's a very easy requirement to speak like, oh, maybe this would be nice. Yeah, probably. But how do you
It's not an MVP probably, but it is interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, we once considered also the idea of ask the user, are you familiar with digital apps, or are you familiar with banking apps and or something like that? And based on the answers, we can
that is interesting.
More complex or very easy onboarding flow.
Some sort of a benchmark, what you can also see in these e-learning apps, like, hey, how good is your German?
Yeah.
And then it's terrible. Okay, then let's start with ich and do. Yeah. Yeah.
And also, I have a question about Blue Button. As I told shortly in the beginning, that I'm developing also a Blue Button on every book, every public library book website. So my question for the future, could I ask our developers to contact you and just to take your experience for this, like general interface place?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, because I saw that Ian. I don't know if you know Ian from.
Yes, I know him.
He's also working on the MyData button, so maybe we can get together on it and have a bit of a.
It's also my idea to use it as my data button. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Because for our Blue Button type, it's supposed to be more of a brand for all information coming from government specifically.
Yeah.
So, but it could still, like, the principle could still be used in other places, of course.
Yes. Thank you. And also, I have seen your presentations from Rabobank. Do you plan that not only Dutch people, but is it interesting for people from other European countries to have accounts in Rabobank? Maybe not for banking things, but for other things also, like public services, or is it not usual?
So what solution do you mean specifically?
Rabobank has now started to use, I think, your Innovalor onboarding service.
You mean ReadID?
Read ID.
Yes.
Yeah, I was thinking, which solution? Yeah, but ReadID.
Yes, that's ReadID. Yes.
Yeah. No, it's already being used in multiple countries.
Okay,
it's already international.
great.
But I can get you in contact with the people from ReadID that will be able to tell you.
Yeah, I know one guy who was in Rabobank. Yes. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, good work, and thank you very much for support also of my assistants.
Thank you very much, Vladimir.
Yes, thank you, Vladimir.
Thank you. By the way, I have made a copy of all these chat things, and I will give it to Caroline, and she will send it to you somehow.
Yeah.
Great.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right
then. Now.
This is it.
Yeah, I think so. Iedereen okay?
When you go, I will close. I don't close before you go.
Well, I think I'll go. I'll go for a coffee.
Yeah, exactly. Time for a break. See you in the afternoon, Marie-José.
Yeah, bye-bye.
Okay.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye,
Thank you very much.
Yeah, I will leave. Yeah.
Please.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.